Oh, good morning, everybody. Obviously, we like to shoot these in different places, but this is a really different place. I told Dr. Case, this was here when I was a student, but it's my first time in the observatory. It is a really cool place, and I want to thank you for joining me today in this conversation. Cool. So we're talking this semester about darkness and light, and really through the lens of John's narrative that we'll be working through this semester. But I'm intrigued by the astronomer on our campus.
All right.
About darkness and light. And I think I've talked to you earlier as well about a book that I read by Barbara Brown Taylor called Learning to Walk in the Dark. So she talks about the lunar cycle. What is the lunar cycle?
Yeah, so it's how the moon goes around the Earth, right? It takes about a month, which is where we get the word for moon, month, right? And it's honestly something that we don't necessarily pay much attention to anymore, because we'll notice, if there's a crescent moon or there's a full moon. But before we had screens or bright lights, that was the only other major light in the sky. So if you had a full moon rising opposite as the sun is setting, that shapes your entire evening, right? I mean, you're going to have a significant amount of light over those evenings near the full moon. When the moon gets closer to the sun, you get a crescent moon, and then when it's really close to the sun and you don't see it at all, it's a new moon. Those nights are going to be completely dark, right? Other than the stars, you're not going to have the light of the moon. So that cycle really made a big difference for how nights would appear and nights would feel before artificial lighting.
The only thing I know about that is, as a hunter, deer hunter,
we
prefer a new moon over a full moon, because deer move a lot more at night when they have light, obviously, right? So a full moon, they will move at night because they see better,
right?
As opposed to a new moon, they're a little more skittish and stuff like that. So as a hunter, because they have to move during the day, prefer a new moon
because they're not moving.
Because they're not moving at night, they move during the day. It increases your chance. That's as much as I know about. Well, anyways, I'll just keep it there.
Because it makes a difference.
So from an astronomer's perspective, though, like we always talk about, we want to live in the light. We talk about faith, right?
Right.
We want the light to be or the darkness to be invaded by light, which we know it has. John's narrative, right, just describing this contrast between dark and light. But from an astronomer's perspective, the darker the night, the better.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
Why?
I even remember as a kid, that metaphor of walking the light. I'd be like, yeah, but I like it better at night, because then you can see the stars, right? You can't see the stars during the daytime. You need to have that darkness. It needs to be dark for you to see these really dim objects.
So the darker, the better?
The darker, the better. If we're scheduling an observing night, sometimes we go to a dark sky park that's about an hour south of here. Ideally, we do those on nights when there's not even a moon, right? When there's a new moon. So the skies are absolutely dark, because if they're dark, then you can see the Milky Way, you can see the stars, you can see all these other dim objects that are still there during the daytime, but you can't see them because the light, because of the sun, obscures the view.
So so the light can actually like even now, if we walk outside, the light is blocking us from seeing what's all around us.
Sure, yeah, astronomically speaking.
So, all right, so I'm thinking of a metaphor, light, darkness. What about, so what do you do then as an astronomer? You talked about dark, they call them dark regions, you called it a dark.
There's one dark sky park, certified dark sky park in Illinois. There are places that are away from any big cities. There's no outdoor lights. Because even here, if you get out to the state park, it's fairly dark, but you've got light from Kankakee on the horizon. All of our outdoor lighting casts light up into the sky, and so to see some of these really dim objects, or to just see a sky that's just full of stars, you need to have really, really dark skies.
Yeah, and I think I shared in an Evo maybe it was a 10 on Tuesday a couple of weeks ago, about the one time I remember that happened, and I was in Elephant Butte Lake. It's 4,000 feet high, and it was really dark, and it was I've never seen anything like it since. It was amazing. But there's also artificial light or false light that can block us as well. So you have the sun doing its job during the day, right? But this artificial light that also blocks us from seeing what's there as well.
And even sometimes the moon, right? You get natural light. If you've got a full moon, it's going to wash out a lot of the stars. And so again, astronomers don't even like the full moon. They don't like the night when the moon is full. It's not fun to observe the moon itself when it's full. You don't get all the neat shadows and contours, and it blocks the other objects. So it takes a sky that's clear of any sort of light, and it also takes time, right? If you just step off the bus and you've been on your screen or something, even if you're at the dark sky park, you step off the bus, it's going to take your eyes sometimes close to 15 minutes to get fully adjusted to that darkness. And then once it does, then you have this view that you've never had before.
Okay, so my mind when you said that went to Paul when he said, we see through a glass dimly. So the times when our eyes aren't adjusting to the things that are around us, or when light can block us from seeing what is really there. Because what you're telling me, Dr. Case, is actually what we see in pitch black night is what's really there.
Yeah.
What's really around us.
Right, yes.
Well, I mean, for me anyways, then to think about think about the society and the culture that we live in, where how many then false lights, are artificial lights, are blinding us from seeing what's really there. It's why I was fascinated by this conversation, because of your fascination with darkness, because we're not, especially in the church, we don't really have a whole lot of fascination with the darkness. But what you're telling me is when it's pitch black is when you really see what's out there.
So we need a theology of darkness? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. Read Barbara Brown Taylor's Learning to Walk in the Dark. Maybe that's the beginning of a theology of darkness, because if darkness can truly reveal what's there, then maybe it's then that we see the real light. I don't know.
It's certainly true in astronomy.
Yeah, so this light-darkness contrast comparison is something that we will talk about. I mean, I've mentioned this to you before when we talk about Nicodemus, who came at midnight to Jesus out of the darkness. The woman at the well came in the middle of the day, right? But trying to mask the dark world that she was a part of. Or blind Bartimaeus, who asked Jesus basically, don't pass me by, save me from my darkness. It's obviously a theme in John, and it's something that I think we need to pay attention to. Darkness isn't necessarily bad or evil.
Right.
Well, we'll continue to talk about this and think about this semester, this topic this semester, and I hope that you lean into it. Dr. Case, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today, and look forward to continuing this conversation with you. Thanks for joining us. Grace and peace.